again, feel free to put your hand up. We want as many people as possible involved in the discussion. This is for fun. That's what this is. It's all for fun. And with that said, I think we should get to some introductions. So, Shamla, welcome to the stage. It's great to have you back in the Voice Den. You want to give us a quick little intro to who you are and what's going on?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Terry. So I'm Shamla Prayaga, and I'm the founder of the Digital Assistant Academy, where we train and certify people in conversation design and voice interaction design. I'm also the product owner at Code Motor Company, leading the autonomous digital assistant effort. And I am the host for the podcast, The Future is Spoken, where we bring in guests like Dr. Terry and a lot of voice experts and talk about voice technologies and ethics and stuff like that.
Awesome. And Shamla, what are you drinking right now in the Voice Den? Are you drinking anything exciting?
No, just water. I just had my dinner, so.
Do you have anything good for dinner? What did you have for dinner?
I had stuffed Indian bread, so it was stuffed with potatoes. It's very, very, very yummy. We call it aloo paratha.
You're making me hungry. It's just before dinner time here where I am. So, okay, now I got to get through an hour of this before you can have some dinner. All right. That being said, all right, Julie, good to see you. Good to hear your voice. Welcome to the Voice. And Julie is I always think of Julie. When I think of Julie, here's the one line. When I think of Julie, I think of the evangelist for education at the intersection of voice technology, period. There's nobody else that comes to mind higher than her when it comes to that intersection. So Julie, great to have you here. Do you want to give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that, Terry. I'm going to leave it with that. No, I'm just kidding. I am the host and founder of the Voice in Education podcast that helps educators and voice enthusiasts be discerning about what education means in the form of voice technology. I'm also a professor of educational technology at UT Chattanooga.
Great. Well, it's wonderful to have you. And are you drinking anything interesting?
I am drinking Crystal Light mango tea.
Crystal Light mango tea. That sounds actually pretty good. All right. That's pretty good. I'd take one of those. All right. Good stuff. And as well, up on stage, we'll skip over you, Ian, for a moment. We'll come back to you. We have Alana Chi, and she is also, actually, everybody on stage has been a voice influencer on the Voice Den. And Alana is an incredibly talented designer, technologist, done some amazing work with some great companies, I know. Alana, why don't you give a quick introduction to yourself as well?
Yes, hello, I'm Alana, and I am the founder of Adassa Innovations, which is basically like a voice studio and consultancy. And what we do is build voice apps. And also, yes, like Terry said, work with some great companies that help bring voice apps to them. But I started off with an app called Music Book Adventures, which is basically for kids. It's an audio interactive game where basically the whole point is to not have any visuals and to just use their imagination to as they go through the actions. So that's kind of how I got into the voice space.
Excellent. Well, it's great to hear your voice and great to have you here. I'm going to turn the floor over to Ian so Ian can explain a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes here. In the meantime, I'd love to invite all of you, any of you, up to the stage. I may invite a couple of people myself just to even say hi, whether or not you have a question or a comment. Doesn't matter. We just want to hear a little bit about who you are and what gets you excited about voice. And while I do that, Ian, maybe you want to give a quick introduction to yourself as well.
All right, my friends. Well, if you were watching this on YouTube, on Ian Utility's channel, you might be laughing. I am using 6 devices to record all of the action happening right now. I'm wearing Snapchat spectacles, which is basically 2 4K cameras on my face. I am live streaming to YouTube, Ian Utility's account. I'm using Attention Live to live stream this room to our Amazon Lexi skill called Attention Live, as well as our Attention Live YouTube page. And I have a couple other devices that are just recording and documenting the moment because I think this is a special thing that we are doing. We are creating an opportunity for Clubhouse moderators like Terry and myself to record these rooms, to transcribe these rooms, to broadcast them to social media sites and voice devices, and to create NFTs. So we have these really cool gold NFTs for our moderators. We have special silver NFTs we've created for all the attendees. And more about me, I live in a treehouse in Santa Cruz County. I'm a daddy. That's the most important thing I do. I'm absolutely sure I'm a better father than I am a businessman or anything else. I have 2 little boys, 12 and 8 years old. And I spend more time laughing every year at work than I did the year prior. I find work to be very enjoyable. I look forward to Monday morning. Friday afternoon makes me very sad. Just the thought that nobody wants to work on Saturday and Sunday, and we're going to stop producing. We're going to stop productive stuff. We're going to have to wait till Monday to get back to it, which is maybe means I have a mental health issue. And if I do, I'm okay with it because it causes a lot of happiness in my life. Terry, I'll hand it off to you. You can tell folks about how they can get the NFT. I also want to introduce Nigel, who's become a friend of the Happy Hour of Voice, and for Brett and Shawnee and Abraham, for Tim and Harold and Bradley and the others that will be coming. Please raise your hand, jump on stage. This is a really informal time for us all to hang out, talk about podcasting, talk about streaming, whether that's audio streaming or video streaming or virtual reality streaming, augmented reality streaming, whatever type of thing you can possibly imagine, whether it's whatever this is kind of what we just want to have open dialogue about. I'm here to learn. And so you'll find that in the next 51 minutes, I will talk a lot less and I will listen a lot more.
I love that. I love that, Ian. All right. I want to tell you guys, for those of you that are here, you get the early bird special. This is how you get your NFTs. There's an NFT being created specifically for all of you here today. And the way you do this is you simply go to the website, thevoiceden.club. Okay, thevoiceden.club. And there you will put in your email and your name so we can send you your NFT once they have been minted. And there's a secret code. There's a secret code that you need to put in, and that secret code changes each day, so that only the people that are truly here in the Voice Den, that is you, can get access to this collectible NFT for today. And today's code is pretty simple. It's the 3 words, the Voice Den. So if you go to thevoiceden.club, enter your information with the secret code, the Voice Den, you will get a collectible NFT minted specifically for this very room. So having said that, let's move on to you, and let's hear more about you. So Nigel, again, welcome back. As Ian said, you are an honorary. You need to have some kind of status for people that are here like day after day after day, Nigel, because that's you. You are one of the biggest supporters of the Voice Den. So Nigel, thanks for being here. Great to hear your voice. What do you have to say?
Well, I am grateful to be here as always, the gratitude champion. I am right. So this is just amazing. Ian, that answer with the myths was absolutely perfect. It certainly helped from our previous room. I am just super interested in seeing how technology can make the world a better place than we found it when we were here, and continue on that legacy. So I'm here to learn and listen and just be grateful. So thank you for having me. I'm done speaking.
Fantastic. Tim, you are now you've got that elevated status here in the Voice Den. You've been here a number of times, and it's great to see you again, Tim. So love to hear your voice as well.
Thank you, Terry, very much. Absolutely. I love being here. Of course, it's cool just to collect the NFTs. If my account will ever let me get them, it'll be even better. Nothing wrong with you. It's just the stupid site doesn't want to create my wallet, but that's okay.
We'll have to figure
Either
that
way, I'm going to crosstalk a little bit with Ian, if you don't mind, because I want to know more about his 40 days of fasting that he just posted about. What was that all about?
Let's pull this into podcasting and streaming. Okay, let's make this make sense. So January 19th, I started intermittent fasting. And that means that I would restrict my eating. So I fasted an average of 18, 19 hours a day. I ate an average of 5 or 6 hours a day. And I did that because I wanted to increase discipline in my life. And I wanted to be healthier. I'd been an overweight man. I weighed over 200 pounds in elementary school. And I'm now under 200 pounds. This is the first time I've been under 200 pounds in like almost 30 years. And so my average weight as a man was 250, 260. And so I realized that I need to make a change. And I tried every diet and every exercise plan. And I would lose weight for a little bit of time and maybe get down to the 240s or 230s. I'm like, wow, I feel so good. At my peak, I wear size 40 jeans and XXX shirts. And it was very sad, hard to get in and out of cars. Everything was hard. And today I'm like floating between size 32 and 34 jeans and medium, large shirts. So yay for the health, and the discipline is a big thing. So how does this tie in to podcasting and streaming? Well, I have gone live several times, live streaming to Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. And I've done it through our Attention Live product. I've done it through the native apps to share my story, to document. And I find that live streaming is one of the most powerful ways to document. Like, for instance, I could tell all of you, I've been involved with NFTs for over 3 years. You may or may not believe me, but you can go see the conference I ran called Future of Tech, November 28th, inside Twitter's headquarters. You can go see the conference I ran called Blockchain 2043 in 2018 inside DocuSign's headquarters. And like, because I live streamed it, I documented it, there it is. Podcasting, like the process of creating audio, also is this whole product. And through the whole time, I've been talking about the fasting. Now, I started a 40-day liquid fast. It was very close to a water-only fast. 43 days ago. I just finished that Friday night. And so on Saturday, I decided to go live and kind of memorialize the 420 days where I never missed a single day of intermittent fasting, and the 40 days of the super restricted, liquid fast, and to talk about that for 45 minutes. And what did I do? I created a video podcast and an audio podcast. I live streamed that through our product to Amazon's Lexi device, to the Attention Live YouTube account. I live streamed it to Ian Utility's YouTube account through Zoom. I live streamed it to Facebook through one of my phones, vertical. I live streamed it through Twitter, through another phone, horizontal, which is a reason why I started Attention Live, because you need all these devices to be able to live stream everywhere right now. We're trying to solve that problem. So hopefully, Tim, I answered your question on fasting. I'm happy to answer more if you had questions. I hopefully talked about tying in to podcasting and streaming. And as far as the account goes, you can imagine, Tim, that when the NFT market has blown up, our friends with their marketplaces, they are dealing with an extraordinary amount of technical challenges trying to keep up. So if you've had a bit of a problem getting it all dialed in with your wallet, our team will be here to support you. If you haven't sent me an email, then please do. If you have, I probably saw it and didn't notice it was your name and probably forwarded on, because I got a couple of them. So hopefully that also satisfies a little bit of your concern around the technical hurdle. I'm done talking. I'd love to hear others chime in on podcasting, streaming. Is anybody else here documenting their life through video or audio, podcasting and live streaming besides me? And to what extent are you doing so?
So I was going to say, go ahead, Shannon. I just want to remind everybody that we are streaming. So if you're coming up on stage, then please just be aware that you're recorded and streaming. But I know that Shamla and Julie, you both have podcasts. Alana, I'm not sure if you do, but Shamla, why don't you go ahead and tell us your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So I have my own podcast for sure. And then basically the podcast is all about educating people about voice technology. So I bring in people from different industries and different disciplines talking about voice technology or ethics or privacy in voice or stuff like that. And it's really insightful to do those things. And that is my way of learning. So the whole reason I started the podcast was, well, not only educating people about what's happening in the voice industry, but also learning from the other experts about these technologies and what they are doing. And I'm terrible at networking. People who know me knows like I'm very introvert kind of. So I had to really get away from my comfort zone and start this thing because, pandemic happened and I was like completely isolated. So that's how I started the podcast. But to your point, Ian, I do document a lot of stuff. So since last year when, I was detected cancer and then had my treatment and all, I realized how precious it is to, how grateful I am for all the things in my life and, how precious the life is. So since then, I've been documenting my entire life and what I'm doing every day and all of those things. And what my son and I started doing, my son is 10 now. So what we started doing is we just record our stuffs, like if we are going out, if we are eating or anything, we just do like vlogging and stuff like that. So I really enjoy doing these things, and it has really, not only helped me personally to learn stuff or just, be grateful for things. When I look back at those things, it's like wonderful feeling for me, but also how far I have come in my life from all the struggles, ups and downs and everything.
That's
amazing.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
that,
thank you so much for sharing all that.
That's it. That's incredible to be able to document that stuff now with your son. So wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Why don't we want to Julie? Julie, how are you using sort of podcasting, and what's been your experience? And do you use it to sort of document as opposed to create? I'll stop there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think my podcasting, I wouldn't say it's necessarily documenting, but I do feel like I tend to do, it's a weekly podcast, Voice and Education podcast, and the point in the beginning was to help educators figure out how can I use voice for learning. And the reason I started it was because I was working full time, and I'd have educators all over the world reaching out to me saying, hey, how do I do this? Or how can I do this safely? And I was able to say, go to episode 104 or whatever, and I could then kind of point them in the right direction. But I will say this, there is a huge movement with educators to really use social media to become better together. And much like what many in the voice industry do, if I figure out something or I do something like today, I created a new module in my Canvas course, and I was really pumped with how it's going to work for my students. And so I videoed me going over it, and then I tweeted it out, and other educators were like, wow, that's a really great idea. Thanks for sharing it. So I guess I kind of share that type of thing, but it wouldn't be just through podcasting. It's through all of social media.
That's great. No, that makes a lot of sense. I have a question for you, Julie, but I want to make sure we get to everybody else here on the stage first, and then we'll come back to it. I just want to see, Alana, I don't think you, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you're currently doing a podcast, but how do you approach your social media in terms of, are you documenting what you're doing, or is it more like creating for the purpose of creating things?
Yeah, no, I don't do a podcast, but in terms of social media, I found that it's so much better, especially with, I guess the closest I have to podcasting is using Clubhouse. But to me, I've had a switch up where I've noticed that just networking and being in a place where you're around people who are in a similar field to you, you can just learn so much. And I feel that especially with the amount of engagement that you do, just being yourself and not overdoing it. Like, I'm someone who's terrible at social media. I can't constantly stay active. I don't know how everyone does it. But I decided not to have like a professional and a personal account. I think that if you can show off your personality through one account, then it also like engages other people, and also people get to know you as much as they can over the virtual world. So I try once a week, try to keep on top of it, and also maybe a couple times a day, but there's just too much social media to keep track of. But yeah,
it's a full-time job for sure. I agree with you there. Let's get to some other of the new faces here on the stage. Just before we do that, a quick room reset. So here we are, we're in the voice den. We're talking about podcast streaming. We are streaming live, so please be aware that if you come up on stage, streaming live and recording. And in the process, we're also creating collectible NFTs. So if you would like to get an NFT, you just go to thevoiceden.club, put in your name, email address, and the secret code is the voice den. All right, next up on the stage here, we have Roger Kibbe. And here's another podcaster. Roger, another friendly face here in the voice tech world. I've had the pleasure of being on your podcast. And Roger, why don't you introduce us and tell us what you're drinking as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I think I see 5 guests that have been on my podcast up on stage right now. So hello, lots of familiar voices up there. And I am drinking a Spindrift, a lime Spindrift, kind of my favorite drink right now, a Spindrift.
All right.
So, because I'm actually working on a podcast. It's getting released tomorrow, so getting the finishing touches on it. But I thought I'd take a break and jump on Clubhouse. So my Bixby Developers Chat is my podcast. Really started professionally, right? To go and reach out to the voice community. Because really my job is to go out and reach out to the voice community and, obviously evangelize Samsung Bixby, but evangelize voice in general. So it's been a lot of fun, but the real value I get out of it, I mean, it's connections and learning. And I obviously love that. And I love talking to the guests and doing that, but I love getting the comments about people who listen to the podcast and they're like, oh, that was interesting, or I learned something. And I feel like that's amazing. There's part of me who always wanted to be a teacher. And so maybe that scratches the itch a little bit. But I think you guys are also talking about kind of is above your, are you documenting your life? Well, maybe my professional life, not so much my personal life, right? My persona here is pretty professional as far as the podcast and a lot of what I do, at least on Twitter. Although I've been thinking about changing that. I have some personal, I would like to turn into, not a podcast, maybe a flash briefing or a short cast. And I just
Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the hint that I am a super passionate cook. So it'd be about cooking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's something that's been a lifetime passion of mine. And I just haven't pulled the trigger on it, but I need to pull the trigger.
Roger, I am a super, super passionate eater. I feel like you and I should spend more time together.
So, well, you know what? Post-COVID, we'll all have to have a big old party and cook for each other and do this and everything. So anyway, I don't know. Podcasting, Clubhouse, everything, all very, very, very fun. And so much opportunity. I feel like I've just kind of scratched the surface of what can be done with them. So
that's amazing. Great, Roger. Well, it's great to have you here, and I look forward to tasting some of your dishes at some point here when we can get together.
Well, the secret's out now.
Yeah, I know. Now I've got some expectations that you got to live up to. So.
If you publicly say something, now I'm publicly committed to doing something. So it was a step in the right direction.
That's right. Oh, that's awesome. All right, wonderful. Well, I also want to welcome Rana Gujral, the CEO of Behavioral Signals. I've gotten to know Rana, I guess over the last couple of years now, I think since we first started talking, Rana, and I love the work that he's doing. He's looking at biomarkers in voice be used a way to help understand really the person's emotions. So Rana, why don't you just take a moment and introduce yourself as well? It's great to have you here.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks a lot for having me here. I apologize. It's Monday, so I kind of lost all track of time, and I still don't have a drink in my hand because I don't think I'm done with my meetings yet. So I got a couple hours more to go. Hopefully, this Monday will end soon. But I echo Roger's sort of sentiment. So many friendly faces out here. Kind of feels like we just sort of hanging out with old friends, some new, some old, some really old. So it's been a few years, Terry, and I think the journey keeps getting more and more exciting. So as Terry said, what we do is we track biomarkers, specifically all emotions, behaviors, and intent signals from the tone of voice, and that's been a core focus. That's the technology that we've been focused at for the last, I'd say, from a founder's perspective, almost over 2 decades. And we were spun out of USC in 2016, so relatively new as a company, not new at all from a research standpoint. And more recently, we sort of focused on building some core capabilities for the financial sector. So that's what we're doing, and it's exciting to have this platform to just casually ideate with fellow voice enthusiasts, which is such a I'd say wonderful experience. So good to be here.
Great, it's wonderful to have you here, Anna. So thanks for joining us. All right, well, we are just about at the half hour mark here of the Voiced In happy hour, and again, just for those of us that are down there that want to join us up on the stage, please feel free to do so. Brett, Shani, David, Charlie, Harold, Lita, and Ivan. By all means, please come on up. We'd love to have you up here. We are recording, keep that in mind. So if you are going to join us, you're more than welcome, but we are recording. And we're giving away NFTs at thevoicedin.club with the secret phrase, the Voiced In. Let's get to Abraham. Abraham, you are next here. It's a pleasure to have you here back in the Voiced In, and would love to hear what you have to say.
Hi, I'm drinking Sprite and also busy designing chips at the same time.
It's a good combination. I like it.
Yeah, so it's good to have some friends to chat with. Normally, in a chip designer's life, there is no one to chat with, and when we come home, it's all dark. There's no chance to see the sunlight.
Oh boy! Well, here we are, and it's there's lots of friendly faces here in the Voiced In. So, anything in particular on your mind, or any questions for anybody that we have here on the stage at the moment?
I'm researching actually into voice right now because that's the first interface, the most natural interface that people use. So I'm looking actually at some papers that do speech recognition right now.
Fantastic. Well, you're in good company here. I agree with you 110%. Voice is the most natural way to communicate. So I agree with you, like I said, 110%. Anybody else want to comment on that before we hear from Shani?
Not particularly on that. I mean, that sounds exciting. I'd say the only comment I'll make on that is there's a huge pent-up demand for a voice chip or an emotion AI chip. So if you build it, Abraham, I think it's gonna be a winner. I've had I'd say at least half a dozen really big device manufacturing sort of companies and corporates sort of reach out with expressed interest in having a dedicated chip that could be sort of that could process what we do potentially in a cal mod setup with low low power requirements and have sort of like this these raw signals that can be harnessed by a variety of apps. Maybe it's a MacBook, or maybe it's a laptop, or a smartphone. And so I think I don't think that anything like that has been done yet. I'm sure the usual suspects like Apple probably is working on it, but I think there's a huge demand for that. The other thing I just sort of like, and I just sort of popped in at the tail end of the previous conversation, but one of my voice AI oldies, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know him as well, Colin Robinson. We caught up after a long time, and he mentioned that he's built this platform that automates the whole podcasting experience, which was very intriguing. I mean, he kind of showed me a quick sort of like a teaser demo, which I'm going to have to dig deeper into because I was so intrigued, where you could sort of preset that experience with the questions which would be asked to the podcast guest, and the podcast guest would record it and respond to it at their own pace and say, okay, this is done, I've done speaking and stuff like that. And so you could sort of like scale up that entire podcasting experience without because there's some guests which is just sort of simply not quite comfortable with being on a live podcast. I mean, it's not live, but still you're live speaking to a host, and they're kind of nervous and they want to sort of just do it at their own pace. I think that would be a wonderful way to go scale up that entire podcasting experience. So I'd encourage you guys to look at it as well, or ping me, and I'll make that intro if you have an interest in that.
Hey, can I jump in and say, yeah, I know Carl well. It's actually called Rumble Studio. And it's a super interesting product. Actually, Carl and I actually recorded him on the podcast using it last August.
There you go.
It was like in the alpha version. It's a super interesting product, actually, around just asynchronously recording podcasts. You're right. If people are, maybe not ready for live, or you know what, we all live such busy lives, and anyone who does a podcast knows sometimes the scheduling can be a challenge. So it has a lot of promise. Rumble.studio. Go ahead, check it out. So Rana, sounds like you know Carl well. I also know him well. I just wanted to throw my support behind what Carl's doing, because really some cool stuff and some cool stuff coming.
No, I'd second that. I mean, I hold Carl in very high regard. I think he's an amazing engineer, voice enthusiast, would-be scientist, in fact, I'd say, and incredibly smart guy. And I think is building this. Yeah, Rumble Studio. I think that's the name. And I've been sort of pinging him to sort of encouraging him to go buy that iPhone already, so that he can come out here and ideate with us. But he's still been not been allowed in here because he's an Android fan. So but do check it out.
Very cool.
Very, very cool. That's great. Thank you. All right. Again, just a quick reminder, we are recording. This is streaming through attn.live and creating NFTs in the process. So if you're up on stage, by all means, more than welcome to, but just keep in mind that it is being recorded. Shani, we spoke weeks ago, and it's so nice to see you here in the Voice Den. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to hear you and see you. So why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, Dr. Terry, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be in the room. I am multitasking, so I wanted to make sure I had a little quiet before I came up. But my name is Shani Richards, and I launched a podcast a few years ago just because I felt like it would be great to have an opportunity to share what I was going through, which was really kind of moving through pushing to success, operating on my purpose, but in a way that I felt other people could relate to, which is when you don't always have it figured out and you're struggling, but you're still in the fight or in the journey to your purpose. And it's not always a straight line from where you're at to your goal. And so I really wanted a way for people to get an inspiration, or me as a cheerleader, if they weren't necessarily always going from their goal, from where they were to their goal in a straight line. So that worked out because I didn't know what I was doing. And I just, had a voice recorder. I did not have the knack for technology, but I really was interested in connecting with an audience. And so that's how I first got connected to podcasting. And it's been a little bit of time. I took a break from it thinking it would be temporary, but it ended up being very long term. I have not gone back to it. And I think I had reached the end of what I was willing to be vulnerable about. I think I had reached the end of what my voice could just say, because I think I was tired. I had too much going on in my life. And so that's something that is a lesson learned for me, that there's seasons and you can share, and also you can take a break and have more of a plan in place. So it was a really great lesson for me. A friend of mine, we've been talking long distance for a while, and we talked about doing a podcast that we're in the plans for, just because it would reflect our conversation. We're from different backgrounds, different life experiences, lots of difference, and we stay in a conversation long enough to find where there's convergence and divergence in our views. And it's just been great for the both of us. And we figured maybe there's other people who can appreciate people from differences coming together and finding friendship, connection, and forging a relationship in spite of what to them or others might seem like a lot of reasons to not be connected. So we're just in the idea stage, and I am really liking the idea of having community to connect to while I'm going through this, because I feel like with podcasting, and this is honestly really new to me, a lot of the terminology that's being used, but I'm hungry for the information. So I figured hanging out in rooms like this would give me an opportunity to be part of the community and have other ideas and voices to be inspired by, and, you know, just maybe even be able to get some tips or suggestions as far as technology platforms and different things like that. So that's where I'm at, and just happy to be in the room with you all today. So thank you.
So great to hear your voice, and thank you for sharing that. Does anybody have any comments for that based on what Shani shared there? Julie?
Yeah, I resonate big time with the feeling like you don't have anything else to say. And there are many times, even though my podcast is only weekly, where I find myself going, what else is there to say about this topic? And it's amazing to me how often something lands in my lap at just the right moment. But there are times that it feels really, really like it's a stretch. And so I just wonder how many others of you out there who do podcasts really struggle with this as well.
Oh, I've struggled with it. With Julie, I've kind of run out of things to talk about or people to talk to, and then I go and look at, and there's so many things happening that I get rejuvenated. But yeah, I think it's an affliction that can happen. Is have I talked to everyone about everything, and I realize I've talked to 1% of people about 1% of the things in reality.
It's so common too. I you know, particularly with my flash briefing, which I do on a daily basis, like when I started, I was like, how am I going to come up with something every single day? And what I do is, and it depends obviously on your niche and you know what you're talking about, but you know, one of the things that I do is I subscribe to Google Alerts, just putting in some keywords that are relevant to me, and then I get an email every day telling the latest news, and then I could use that as a source for some of my content. But again, obviously that depends on what area you're in and your niche and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, wonderful to have you here on the stage. Thank you so much for being here, Shani. Charles is now also becoming a regular in the voice den, and it's great to have you here, Charles. Always a pleasure to hear your voice, have you on the stage. So why don't you take it away and share a little bit about yourself as well. If you've got any questions or comments for people on the panel here as well, by all means.
Thanks, Terry. Good to be back here. My name is Charles. I run a business called Ideation, and we basically help folks scale and execute on a lot of their concepts. Definitely a serial entrepreneur. I wrote a book called Good Idea Now What, so I'm pretty passionate about execution. I love to just kind of hearing your stories and maybe like the challenges of like generating content and such, but my interest in the podcast streaming space is I'd love to hear like how all of you are measuring success in what you're doing. Is it sheer just amount of listens or downloads, or are there other like metrics you're using to see if a particular episode was impactful or not? Love to get some thoughts on that, both from a podcast perspective as well as a live streaming of a podcast. And I'm not speaking.
That is a great question. Anybody want to tackle that one? We've got a lot of podcasters up here and content providers. I'm happy to share my thoughts, but anybody want to tackle that? How are you measuring success as a podcaster, as a content producer?
For me, I think it's if I feel like I'm still helping people. My goal from the beginning wasn't, you know, the number of hits or I'm such an interesting niche with my podcast that my goal really was, as long as I remain relevant to helping the people who want to hear what I have to say. So it's less about the numbers for me and more about, I guess, the passion.
Yeah, I love that. I love to hear what you said, because it's pretty much the same for me. You know, I don't look at the numbers like how many people watch, because I basically upload it on Buzzsprout and all the podcast platforms, but also on YouTube. So I have a mix, but I'm not looking for, the number in general. What I look for is that adding value to people. And every time I upload an episode, I get so many LinkedIn messages, or people just email me saying how much they love the podcast and how much it added value and all of those things. That definitely helps me measure whatever I'm doing is making or adding value into people's life. And in fact, 2 people told me just listening to the podcast and learning, they have learned so much about conversation design that they started new positions. So that is a success for me. That's the entire reason why I started the podcast.
I just want to echo that. It's all about the kind of feedback you get, whether Twitter, LinkedIn, emails, DMs, and that. That's how I measure it, is are people enjoying it and having some fun and learning. So, I do look at the number of people who watch things, and sometimes they fret if it's down, and then something happens and it goes up. So, all good.
It's interesting, Charles, like that question, because we may be a bunch of outliers here, because I feel the same way too. I actually couldn't tell you what my numbers are as far as my podcast listeners go. I actually look at it very rarely. And for me, again, it's more feedback in a qualitative way, not so much the quantitative way for me. It's more like, the messages that I get, or opportunities that come along because I have a podcast. Oh, we heard this, and can you do this, or would you be interested in doing this? That sort of thing. That's how I know that it's providing value, and in some way that is my level of success. So that's interesting, because most of us here seem to agree with that. And I don't know if we're a bunch of outliers or if that's most podcasters, but that's how I feel.
It strikes me, Terry, is sorry, I think I interrupted or cut you off. Nobody here is trying to make, at least that I know of, a living off their podcast, right? And so we're all doing it because we love something, and there's a passion there. And if you do something because you love and you have a passion for it, your success metrics are completely different. There are, and I was just on a Clubhouse conversation, and it was all about, people finding success and wanting to make money on their podcast. And I just had to leave it, because I was just like, this is just not how I see that at all. Right. And that's fine. If that's how people want to do, I am not judging anyone who says, I'm going to, become successful via my podcast. But it sounds like none of us are looking at it that way, at least financially successful. We're looking at it and doing it for different reasons.
Yeah. Well,
If I can, I would say it's really, to echo that as well. It's the impact. I remember, doing a podcast that was just local, and I didn't see any traction whatsoever. And then one day I walked in to get an iPhone fixed, and the one of the co-owners literally said to me, "I recognize your voice. You do this podcast." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I listen to every single episode." And I was like, wow, like that was like an unlock for me. And I think it's those types of things that kind of drive and move the needle, to speak about passion. But it's also, I think, asking the right questions as well. I think the more you get direct feedback, and I mean beyond the wow, great, amazing, fire emoji, that sort of thing, is the more you understand and the better you can do, and then you can make a bigger impact. I'm not able to speak.
That's great. Charles, does that give you an idea there, an answer to your question?
Yeah, I think some of the podcast content we create, definitely that's the goal. And we're not tracking numbers as specifically. We have had in our business other set of interviews with significant voices in different industries, and we'll record those. And it is kind of I guess it's more like an interview, and it's not technically a podcast, but we'll take those and just give it to some of our key clients as value add content. So we have used portions of interviews or something that turn it into more exclusive opportunities, where it's once again a value add and seeing kind of the response of what our client is. So yeah, I was just curious. I think that would be the spirit of most people, I think, doing podcasts. They want to help others. But I was curious if there's other things that you're looking for. So thanks for all your answers. This is Charles, and I'm speaking.
Yeah, that's great. I want to. We've got just a few minutes left here. We've got 13 minutes left to be exact in the happy hour. So again, thank you everybody tuning in. We still can get a few more people up on the stage if you'd like to ask your questions. I know we have some people there still. We're definitely going to get to you. Just want to remind everybody that we are recording. We're streaming via Attention Live, and we're creating NFTs. You just go to thevoiceden.club. With the secret code TheVoicedIn, and you'll get your own very very own collectible NFT. So with that, let's introduce Michael. Michael is an entrepreneur. I'm looking at high performance psychologist with the Seattle Seahawks. Very cool. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you here in the Voiced Den. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Great, thank you for having me. And the reason I tuned in is because it was last week I saw Terry and Ian, what you guys were doing with NFTs and the whole thing, and I thought it was great and fun. And so I tuned in just to kind of, ask, really to listen to your perspective on what's next with NFTs and podcasting, and just hear your creative exploration there. So that's my simple question. And then I'll just answer the last kind of thread, which was about monitoring success metrics. And we've got a staff of 3 folks that for our podcast that really take a deep dive into metrics. And so we are looking at not only growth metrics, like what is our week over week increase in listens, but what is our base? How does our base move? Like the base listens. We're also looking at different engagements across social. And we actually have found that we started our podcast as a learning experiment for me, like as a postgraduate learning to, celebrate the extraordinaries, but also for me to continue to learn from people that in fields and disciplines that I wouldn't have natural access to. And it's been awesome. So it's been very much a rewarding process. It's been hard. Growth is complicated. There's a moment where you decide to make it a business or not. And we decided to make it a business vertical for us, which has been awesome as well. And like I said, hard. And so I just want to offer that we track quite a bit. And we are looking as a business vertical to extend other verticals, but never lose touch with the primary mission, which is to learn as well as share the insights from the extraordinaries. But I'll stop talking here because I really want to hear Terry and Ian and your creative ideas around, and others around NFTs for podcasting, what some solutions might become.
Ian, that sounds like that's your question. Are you there?
Yes, I am. I am here, and I'm happy to answer that question. So thanks for even asking it. But I'm wondering if it would make more sense to let some other folks introduce themselves that are on the stage, and I could just swing right back to it. I feel like I can articulate an answer pretty quickly. It's nice to have folks with us that are really familiar with what we do. Terry was our first user. We are excited to get Nigel as one of our beta users. We're excited to bring on Scott as one of our beta users. We've had such an onslaught of folks request to use the product. And part of it is who's the right fit based on analytics. And the other part is who's the right fit based on relationship. So I don't believe Scott, Wendy, Aaron, and Ted have had a chance to say hello yet. So could the 4 of you pop in and try to be as brief as possible? That way I can get back to Michael's question that maybe some other folks are also interested in hearing the answer to.
Great. Scott, do you want to take it away? Welcome back to the stage. Always good to see you here, Scott. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm trying something new. I'm trying my Blue Yeti that I got from Reddit, VoiceBot AI, connected to my phone. So I'm hoping I'm coming through clearer than normal.
You are clear, but it's a little bit quiet, at least to my ears. I don't know if anybody else finds that.
Not very well may be the case. As far as the podcast question goes, I'll be real brief. I use it in real estate, both real estate education and working with clients. And for me, the podcast was an evolution. I went from having a blog that was pretty well received, published that as a book, which can be found on Amazon. Jack and Jill Go Up, The Homeownership Hill. And then from there, it became a mission for me to make it a podcast because somebody told me I could. And don't tell me that because I'll figure it out. But then I was challenged to go see the movie or the series Between Two Birds, and that's kind of where I'm headed. Is a more not slapstick, but a more sit down interview type style. That's where I'm head. That's where my head's headed now. I think a lot of planning is needed in order to get there, but I think that's also the key with a podcast is to plan, yet be flexible, and I'll listen.
I really love that idea. Wendy Cooper, it's so wonderful to have you. Can you please introduce yourself and let folks know why you're here with us for a happy hour and what you're drinking, please?
Well, I'm actually sitting in my car because the wind is so severe by the beach here in Los Angeles that I have to sit here so I can share my thoughts with you guys and not get out of my car. But thank you for having me up on stage. It's interesting because I actually have two podcasts right now, and one is it's called The Five with Wendy Cooper, and it's just the genesis of that one was doing a flash briefing as on Amazon, and that kind of grew more into me just doing this 5-minute podcast every day for 129 episodes. That was just me being me and me being authentic and me being funny and me, just sharing whatever I wanted to share. And that format for me has really worked. But I do feel for people when you say, I don't know what to talk about, because, oh my God, I got to episode 129 and now it's a weekly because I couldn't do it every day anymore. But I believe that podcasting, the value of podcasting, because I also have another podcast called The Wendy Cooper Show, conversations with remarkable people over 50, and it's edited story views, right? So I interview someone, and then I extract myself out of the entire interview, and I create a story with new narration and music and sound design, so it becomes entertaining and shortened and kind of a piece of art. So it doesn't really belong on Clubhouse, that kind of thing. But I believe everyone is a product, and everyone needs marketing to succeed. And that is how I got into having a radio show back in the day that was about marketing. And I would be able to showcase other people's expertise. And we would talk about, direct response marketing and fulfillment and telemarketing and things like that. But also give the opportunity to other people and innovators and authors and people who had products to talk about their product. And that became a marketing tool for them, right? And this is back in the day when LA Talk Radio basically would only then be put up on iTunes, and that was it, right? So over the course of time, I believe that for me, podcasting is so valuable as a marketing tool that's for personal branding or for whatever. But I think it's just a sensational marketing tool for your guest and for everyone and for yourself. And so we don't lose sight of that. And I rarely look at my numbers also. I do it for other reasons, and I do it because I love to be able to tell people, yeah, you should go listen to my podcast. I talk about that. And I've interviewed this person, and it's, oh, you did? Yes, I did. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. Thanks for having me up. I'm Wendy, and I'm done talking.
Thank you for joining us. Aaron, you're a podcast host yourself. So it'd be nice to have you share why you're with us. I know you have Within the Game podcast. You also have a Clubhouse Club, Inspired Leadership. Welcome to the Happy Hour Voice. What are you drinking? And how would you like to let us know what you're all about?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm drinking water, but I'm enjoying this conversation and really grateful to be here. I just want to echo what Michael Gervais said. And if people don't know Michael, they need to click on his profile and find out about him. Go listen to his podcast. Michael is the man. I had him on my podcast. He's awesome, Michael Gervais. But I would just echo what he said about the NFTs. I'm very curious about that because I think that is the future of online transactions, specifically for content creators or artists, musicians, anyone putting out something of value digitally. So I'd love to hear some more insight on that. And I think it's totally okay to be both profitable and creative for a positive impact at the same time. Thanks so much.
Great to have you here, Aaron. Ted, jump in quickly. Ted's our Chief of Ethics at attn.live. He's been the Chief of Ethics for all of my companies for almost a decade. I always start with Ted because I figure if I can get focused on the purpose and the vision and the mission, then everything else will follow better behind that. Ted, introduce yourself before Emily and Nick jump in and I answer the question that Michael asked and we get ready to wrap up.
Yeah, I was very intrigued by Michael's question, and I'm intrigued by your answer. So I actually rose my hand before I realized, before he asked his question, because I was about to ask it. But what I'm interested in, and you can comment on this, Ian, is, when we wrote the white paper on Attention Live and our software and NFTs and the future of all that, we envisioned how much NFTs can bring innovation in the area of tracking metrics. Like, so Michael, you're a sports psychologist. It'd be, the more and more we can track, like if you tell an athlete something, you don't want to just measure how much he hears. You don't even want to measure how much he does. If there is a way you can measure the improvement in results he gets by implementing what you tell him. And, if we could go that direction with what we're talking about, seems like it'd be really exciting. So I'm Ted, I'm done talking.
Amen to that. I love it, Ted.
And I'm so glad you're here, Michael. Emily, please introduce yourself. It's always so wonderful to have you. And we'll have Nick do the same, and I'll answer that question that Michael asked that others are interested in as articulately as I possibly can.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. I am a professional violinist transitioning into conversation design. So I'm just here to learn from all of you. So thanks for having me.
Great to have you here, Emily. Nice to hear your voice again. And last but certainly not least, another friend from the voice community, Nick. Why don't you introduce yourself as well? And then I think we're going to... Nick, are you there? We can't hear you. Oh, there you
Hey, everybody. My name's... Can you hear me? Sorry about that. I got poor
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Go for it.
A little bit late today. But yeah, just wanted to pop in, introduce myself, and I'm Nick. I co-host a podcast called Voice Spark Live, and that's pretty much it.
Good to have you here.
Wonderful. Okay, let me answer the question, Michael. Before I do, everybody, thank you for being here. Terry and I do this 3 times a week. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for an hour. It's a chance for everybody involved in voice tech, voice first, AI, NLP, ML, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, podcasting, live streaming to come together in a chill environment to enjoy each other's company, learn from one another. We also are giving NFTs away. The moderators get a gold NFT for participating, and the attendees get a silver NFT. You just need to go to the voiceden.club to get that. Okay, so the answer to the question on NFTs. Let me just make it personal for you, Michael. I know you by reputation. You have had several of our mutual friends say very nice things about you behind your back. And so congratulations on building a reputation like that over the last several years and decades. So you wrote a book with Pete Carroll. Okay, so Compete to Create. So let's just talk about what it means for your and Pete Carroll's next book. For your next book, you're going to author a book. There's the written word, there's the audio book, there's video promotional pieces. Every single thing that you and Pete create can be turned into a one-of-one NFT that the two of you co-own, or 2 separate NFTs. You have the non-fungible token that signifies ownership over one or each of the different pieces that you contributed, as well as Pete. The two of you then have the chance with your non-fungible token that signifies the ownership of everything, or the ownership of different pieces, a chapter here, a video there, a podcast here, the audiobook there. And then with that token, you now have proof on the blockchain that that is your intellectual property. So you get to protect it. With that token, you can track engagement. So the token that we create with Attention Live has the ability to track how the likes and follows and engagements and comments that happen on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. And so all of a sudden, you now have something very valuable for publishers, very valuable to go to sponsors and advertisers with, very significant if you're trying to do something of impact with philanthropy, because now you have proof. Look at the engagement of what me and Pete created together. On top of that, you now have the ability to easily license different pieces or the entire thing to different organizations for a limited time, or to sell that right to them. So now you say, you know what, I'm done. Like, I've squeezed all the energy out of this I can with Pete. Pete's done. Me and Pete are going to lease this out to HarperCollins or Random House for the next 2 years. because we wrote this next book independently. We're going to lease it out to Fox or CNN for the next 2 years. We're going to lease it out to Clear Channel Communication for the next 10 years so they can use it for the radio broadcast. The most beautiful thing is with non-fungible tokens is that the original creator always gets compensated on the following second, 22nd, and 222nd sale or lease. So in 50 years from now, after HarperCollins sells it to CNN, after CNN sells it to Clear Channel, after Clear Channel sells it to Random House, after Random House sells it over to Fox, and all those transactions with the original book and content you and Pete wrote, the videos, the audio, the written word, after it keeps getting good from organization to organization, there's a transaction of compensation. And when that happens, you and Pete, as the original owners of that content, have an opportunity to retain a certain percentage of what happens. This is why musicians have been so graced in our Western civilization the last 50 years. Because when they write a hit song, their children and their children's children continue to get compensated for the radio plays and the plays in the restaurant and the records that are sold and the Spotify downloads, but there's never been something like that for authors, for podcasters, for Clubhouse moderators, for Twitter space hosts, for the list goes on and on. And so I really am passionate right now in how I'm explaining this to all of you because I want you to catch my heart. Now, some of the things I'm saying have already been built inside the attn.live platform. We built it in 2019. We tried to perfect our version 1 from mid 2019 to early this year. We rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up and are now transitioning to version 2, which is why I'm finally going public with our product. And some of it's built, some of it's automated. Some things will be automated in version 3. The point is that our platform is going to do this for people. And I believe that the way that we've structured it, that allows content creators to create at scale with mass distribution, incredible analytics, IP protection, IP monetization, removing all the barriers of middlemen, is ideally the Gutenberg printing press of the digital age. Now, will attn.live be that? Well, our team's diligence and the grace, I always think of business success. It's like we have the courage, that's our sales, and there's the market, and that's the grace. So if the market responds to attn.live, right, then we will create the Gutenberg printing press of the digital age. If not, then ideally I'll inspire some young kid, I'll inspire some incredibly intelligent woman and her team to say, well, Ian and his team, they didn't have what it took to get there, or the market didn't respond, or they were too early. And they will succeed in this vision because the vision I'm casting is a vision that will bring prosperity and abundance to the world because the majority of the world is suffering right now. They don't have technology we have in their language. They don't have the ability to access content the way that we do. They don't have the ability to make money from content that's in their soul and in their head the way that we do. We are ones with too much opportunity, too many open doors, too many things that we have a hard time. We're frozen with, what do I do? Many of these folks don't have that same grace. And my hope is that our product will be used by the world one way or another, because I think it will create a more intelligent world that's learning faster in a way that they can absorb, and a more wealthy world that is able to be compensated for the things that they create. I know there's a lot more I can say. So what I'm going to do when we end this, I'm going to jump on Twitter as soon as we end this in 2 or 5 minutes. I'm going to jump on Twitter. I'm going to open up a Twitter Spaces right now. I'm live broadcasting my screen and my video to YouTube at Ian Utility. I'm going to jump on Twitter. If anybody wants to jump on Twitter and see what Twitter Spaces is like and comparing it to Clubhouse, come join me. If you want to see what I'm going to do a live demo on video, you can watch. And so this is spontaneous. I didn't really plan it, but I think it's a worthy use of my time. So again, when this is over, I'm going on Twitter. I'm going to open up a Twitter Spaces room. Anybody wants to jump in can jump in, and we can talk a bit more specifically about the NFT side of things and this vision that I'm casting for all of you.
Ian, amazing. This is Aaron. Can you just go over the transaction real quick, how you play that picture out? So someone buys an NFT. So where does the transaction take place? Is it in dollars, or is it in crypto, or is it in Bitcoin? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so in our marketplace.cred, which is a peer to Nifty Gateway, OpenSea, these really large marketplaces will take fiat currency, like US dollars, and cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, Ether, and all the other altcoins. Some of the smaller marketplaces only take Ether. Our tokens are placed on the Ethereum blockchain, and that is the standard for now. So what happens, a smart contract is written, and the smart contract says that every time this token is sold that Aaron created, that Aaron gets X% of the first sale, and every following sale, Aaron gets X%. And the smart contract is the one that just takes care of that for you, and then takes care of that for potentially your descendants. So it's on the Ethereum blockchain. It can be on the EOS or another blockchain. It's currently in .cred marketplace. It can be moved from that wallet to another marketplace like Nifty C, Open Gateway. And the smart contract is what determines how the ongoing compensation happens for a creator.
Now, the smart contract is in Ether, though, mostly, isn't it?
Right now, the majority of smart contracts and the majority of NFTs are inside the Ethereum blockchain. There's a new blockchain that a lot of people are excited about called Cardano, and that may be one that really launches. And a lot of people would disagree and say, no, it's this chain, it's that chain, it's this chain. You can see how some of these organizations have done well with like Steam, the way they compensate creators, with the Brave browser, the way they compensate consumers. It's a new model structured as a decentralized, autonomous community that puts the creator as the priority and the consumer as the priority over a capitalist organization. Although the tech creators, the capitalist company like attn.live, still has a chance to benefit as well, the way that we structure things between us and the creators and consumers.
And last question, is that profit on that NFT, that compensation, is that in perpetuity?
It is, yeah. So it's in perpetuity, that just like it would be for a musician. And you, I guess as a creator, could probably sell your compensation in perpetuity, but we have never considered that. We want the original creator to be compensated for the rest of their life. And imagine just for a second, last thing I'm gonna say, could you imagine if I was on Martin Luther King Jr.'s team? Can you fathom if I was able to have this technology and my passion and my vision, and I was dedicated 100% to Dr. King? What could I have done? Not what could my team have done? What could we collectively have done to serve him? To empower him to reach so many more people by decentralizing his writings, his audio, his video, his vision, his community. I mean, it's really profound to think how much opportunity this creates for people of old. And then we make it personally, say, well, then how about me? How about now? How about my parents? How about my kids? How about my coworkers? How about my clients? What could this do for them?
So, Ian, you're essentially saying that NFTs could make all of this content profitable, right? But the challenge for me that I'm seeing there, because otherwise I'm excited, but the challenge is that how do you expect the behavior to change from the consumer? The consumer is so used to free content. Now we're saying paid, basically, right?
No, you're not. The person that pays for the content is the NFT collector or the NFT champion, call them a publisher. The consumer should not have to pay for the content unless a content creator puts a paywall up. In fact, it may be the opposite. Just like the Brave browser compensates the people that use their browser instead of Chrome or Safari or Firefox. If you use the Brave browser, you get a little tiny percentage of the advertising dollars. Imagine a world where you're not as popular and well-known as Michael Gervais and his co-author, Pete Carroll. You're a brand new author, and you just really want people's attention. And you're willing to literally pay 1 penny per minute for people's attention if they leave a comment and a like and a share. I'm talking about an economy building machine, a machine that will unlock abundance because brand new people that want attention and want influence, that are willing to pay for that attention and influence, they can find the specific consumers that are willing to give their ear to them, to tell them what they want to say, comment for them, like, share, and be compensated in return. So some content creators will compensate consumers for their attention, and some consumers might have to compensate creators for their content because they put a paywall. Every single person in a decentralized, autonomous community should have the opportunity to decide how they want to engage with that community, with those creators, with those consumers, with the NFT collectors, with the NFT champions, the publishers. And this is the economy that we've been working to create for the last 3 years.
Amazing, Ian.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. We will have more of this on Wednesday. I want to thank everybody for sticking around for extra 10 minutes here. We do try to keep on time, but this was just too good to cut short. I do want to thank as well, specifically our moderators, Ilarna, Roger, Rana. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you to all of you on the stage, Nigel, Tim, Abraham, Michael, Scott, Wendy, Aaron, Ted, Emily, and everybody in the audience as well. Thank you for being part of this. A quick reminder, for sticking around, I'll give the one last reminder. If you do want to get the collectible NFT that is being created specifically for this session of the Voice Den, you go to thevoiceden.club. There you will put in your name, email address, and the secret code for today is the Voice Den, and we will mint a collectible NFT specifically for you. Well, I think we'll cue the music here. Any last comments, Ian?
Cue the music, click on my profile. You can book a meeting with me. It's free. Happy to meet with you for a few minutes. I'm going to Twitter Spaces right now. If you want to ask me more questions, meet me there. I appreciate all of you. Happy Monday. I'll see you on Wednesday if I don't see you on Twitter. Welcome, Scott. I don't know Twitter Spaces full rules. I'm assuming that as long as I tell people that I'm recording and live broadcasting, that it's okay. So Scott, do I have your permission to record and live broadcast this? Because I'm still going from our original meeting.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, my friend. Thanks for jumping in. Welcome.
Did you get that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So welcome to the party.
This is the first one I've been on Spaces. I've been trying to get on one for a while.
Yeah, well, the way that you get to be a host is you jump into a bunch of rooms. That's basically how it works. So I jumped into a bunch of rooms and I participated, and finally they gave me a they gave me something.
Yeah, that's typical Twitter. I've been a Twitter insider for 5 years now.
Right.
And they didn't mention they were coming up with this at all. It just all of a sudden appeared.
Right. It's pretty wild.
So I was kind of disappointed that they didn't mention that with the Twitter insiders.
I know it's pretty wild. Hey, welcome to the party.
All right.
So here we are.
I'm using emoji. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. You got the emoji thing happening. We aren't going to go very long, but I do think it'd be nice, Scott, to answer any question that you have. Terry and Ted, you both know that I'm both recording and streaming this still. I just shared the video stream to Twitter. So if you want to see my face, you can go on there. Welcome, Jessif. I hope I said your name right. It looks like you do NFT reviews, so you might be in the right place. Our company, attn.live, has created a software product that broadcasts podcast and Clubhouse rooms and Twitter space rooms, etc., to voice devices like Alexa, to different social media sites like YouTube, as well as creating an NFT automatically to protect the intellectual property as well as the monetize that content. So Scott, you want to maybe dive in a bit deeper, ask a question. Gabe and I just talked about getting you bumped up the list last week as a beta user, because you've been jumping in and spending a lot of time with me and Terry.
We have a meeting
with him tonight at 6, right? 14 minutes.
I have a meeting with him on the hour.
Yeah, good.
Be in until. Right, exactly.
Well, now's a good time for you and I to chat.
Problem right now is okay.
Great. You got my full undivided attention. Yeah, go ahead.
So how is it? So I don't even know where to start. It's with the process and how you set it up. So we set up your software, and then that's the hub, or that's the beginning, the alpha and omega.
Okay. So the way it's going to happen is you're going to go on to stream.attention.live. You're going to create an account. You are going to get the approval of my technical team. They are then going to set you up so you can build out your profile. You're going to connect your YouTube page or create a new YouTube page that you can connect so that every time you live broadcast, it broadcasts on YouTube. You're going to connect your .cred marketplace account to our NFT token creator. You're going to create your first token. And that way, every time you do a broadcast, an NFT token is created on the Ethereum blockchain, put inside the marketplace. You're then going to go inside our voice interface and create a channel inside of our Alexa skill. And that's going to give you a chance to where you can have an introduction and pick your keywords. And that way, every time you broadcast, it broadcasts in real time to Alexa. You're then going to start figuring out what hardware do you have, what software do you have, and what combination of hardware and software is going to work best. For instance, most Mac users have the best experience using an iPhone or an iPad with a Safari browser. And most Windows, Android, and Samsung hardware users, software users, have the best experience using a Firefox browser. So we'll kind of figure out, Gabe will do some testing with you. And after you get your feet under you, you and I will probably jump in and do a broadcast together. As you know, it's a 12-week beta test type of thing. And so it gives you a chance to get your feet wet, and we'll kind of figure out together, like, where does this land? Ask me more questions. I'll be happy to try and answer questions for you.
See, I can see this being, especially the NFTs part, being part of a bigger community in real estate, because then you can make the NFTs be part of maybe the transaction part, if you will. And it can be an NFT for any buyers that came and visited the property. And that would be their thank you for visiting the property, would be this NFT. And they can collect the NFTs, and then when they finally purchase the home of their dream, that they would maybe get the gold NFT for that one, because that's the one they settled in on, and they could collect those. And then, I see some definite applications from a user base, buyer seller user base. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How do you envision specifically this being used when it comes to real estate?
Kind of like a chase card, kind of like the chase card in the deck of cards. You're chasing the unicorn, trying to find the one that is yours, which is the home that you're going to end up buying. That's not what I'm beta testing. That's bigger picture type things. What I would be beta testing would be more along the lines of what I'm doing in real estate, what I'm doing in my podcast world. But the idea I'm talking about now is broadening the sphere, broadening the accessibility of having a podcast about a specific piece of real estate. And then people that are interested in it, they either go visit the property, or they come into the live stream, and they're on the live stream. They get the NFTs, and they can collect, and try to add value to the showing process. Kind of like, you remember Foursquare, when Foursquare was fun?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I was what was it called? I was a mayor of towns. It was fantastic. It was like the ultimate gamification of Yelp.
Yeah, it was great. And then Facebook took it over, and it went shit. They forgot the vision of it, and it was having fun going where you're going. Well, we used to use that real estate for open houses, and you would put out a Foursquare open house, and you would say that we've got a $25 gift card. We're going to draw from the first 5 people, so we have to have 5 people attend. So tell your friends, and then they would literally show up, and then we would do the drawing, and then somebody would win. And so the kind of the same thought process, taking that forward with real estate, but on a more broader level, not a narrow just Scott level, more of a maybe an association level or a brokerage level kind of thing.
I see. Yeah, well, I think it's be fun to dive deeper. I want to acknowledge, Priscilla, that you just jumped in. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing on Clubhouse. I believe you already know I'm both recording and live broadcasting this, and so it's important that I tell you that. I still have to figure out Twitter's terms for Twitter Spaces, but I believe this is enough for me to tell you and for you to acknowledge that that's okay. Would you like to jump in and participate as a speaker? I think I need to click on your face and say invite to speak. There we go. So hello, if you'd like to jump in and speak, you can. If Scott and Priscilla, if both of you are new, there's on the bottom, it's a little bit different than Clubhouse in that there's a little heart plus sign. If you click on that, you can do these little animojis. And so that's an advantage over Clubhouse. That's something that they have going for them. Another thing that they have here that they don't have on Clubhouse is that you click the little people's faces, and that's how you would invite other people to join our conversation. And if you click on the 3 dots, then you can click on view captions. And that way, if you have to turn down the volume and you're busy with something, you can still kind of read the captions pretty close to what we're saying. So anyway, Priscilla, I invite you to be a speaker, but maybe it's not a good time. You just want to listen. So fantastic. Scott, in that case, let's keep going. Scott, why don't you ask me more questions so that I can, continue to, Priscilla, there you are. You're a speaker now. Yay. Welcome to the party.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I saw you on here and had to join. I've been part of the Twitter Spaces beta for a little bit, but I liked how you were explaining it. So it's, very simple. This is what you do, straightforward. This is how you use it. So it's great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so glad to have you. Do you have any questions on how you could be using Twitter Spaces and join Clubhouse for facilitating conversations, and then leverage? Ted, you might want to go on mute. I hear some background noise. Thanks. Sounds like basketball, which is fantastic. Congratulations. Is there any way, Priscilla, that you're considering how you could use our product in order for you to record these Twitter Spaces, these Clubhouse rooms, transcribe them, broadcast them to voice devices like Alexa, social media sites like YouTube, create NFTs to protect your intellectual property, monetize your intellectual property? Is there anything that sparks your imagination on how you could personally use this product?
Well, there's a longer answer, but I'm going to try to be as precise as possible. So when it comes to your product, I consider myself more of for the co-creator. So I don't want to say thought leader because I just feel like that's just an elitist term, right? What I like to do is encourage others to really know how they can maximize the use of Alexa or Google Assistant. And with that, I don't know why it keeps inviting me to speak. It's something weird's going on. But anyway,
probably because I had before, so it's like coming at you late or something.
Oh. Got it. Thank you. So yeah, with that said, I do see myself sharing the opportunity with many professionals, especially I don't know if you're aware, I'm part of the management team for women in business on Clubhouse. We have over 270,000 professionals. So, most of them don't even know how to utilize voice AI, right? So that's where I come in, and I show them how exciting that is. So I tying it back to your question, I would love to present the opportunity, and even utilize it myself. Everything's you're doing with the NFTs just seems really amazing, and I would love to help you out with that. Just let me know, and then we could set up some sessions and share Priscilla out.
Great. So here would be the next step, Priscilla. If you haven't gone to attn.live, attn.live, please go there. Please register as a beta user. It'll send you an automatic email saying, thank you. We got your registration. If you are really interested, fill out this form. The form doesn't take very long. It just lets us find out how you might use the product. I would strongly encourage you to either read, watch, or listen to the white paper, because it will really give you a very clear, articulate understanding of, I took 2 years to write that white paper with a brilliant human that has 2 doctorates from Stanford, one in economics and one in mathematics. And so that will give you a really clear understanding of where we're going. And then grab time on my calendar. My calendar link is right here on Twitter. It's bit.ly/meet Ian Utility. So you and I can just grab a few minutes together and connect that way. And then I'll get Gabe involved, and we'll see when would be a good time to bring you in on board and how you do that. Okay, Dr. Michael Gervaisis, I'm glad to have you here. When I saw you pop in, I thought to myself, ooh, Michael's here. This could be fun.
Man, I'm learning from you, dude. Yeah, appreciate your kind words, and this little Twitter space here I didn't even know this existed either, so this is cool. And so I sent you a DM on Insta just saying,
perfect.
We'll figure out next steps, what they could be, and yeah. So thank you. I'm soaking it up, and you're obviously a couple marathons ahead, which is fun.
Well, that way we can work together. Were you ever involved with pro athlete outreach?
No.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
I thought maybe I had met you at one of those conferences. I was really involved with pro athlete outreach and Coaches Timeout and all the different organizations that spun to support NFL players for a couple of years. They launched the Increase, and they kind of ran that out of our office when I had an agency. And so I didn't know if we had ever connected, or if I just had a lot of our mutual friends that were a part of the Seahawks or are a part of the Seahawks that would say great things about you. So thanks for sending me a DM.
Yeah, cool, man. Only believe half.
Yeah.
Smoke and mirrors, they go a long way.
Yeah, I know. It's the same for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. What I'm trying to sort out is that I guess I can't find. I love the concept, but I can't quite follow the dollars.
Yep.
Meaning, I get okay. You made a great example about a book and how that might be able to work. And I guess from the podcasting space, I'm not sure how to follow the dollars from podcasting. Maybe there's a couple loops there that are still being sorted out. But I as a more simple explanation, I can't even really follow the dollars in a book with an NFT. And it sounded like you were suggesting that on my next book, and maybe I made a fundamental flaw, because HBR, I just signed with HBR a couple months ago, which I'm excited about. But now I'm like, damn, maybe I should have just owned all my stuff instead of doing a traditional publisher. So maybe you could just walk me through that one more time. Sure.
Can everybody press mute while I speak? Because I'm for some reason getting a feedback. Okay, here we go. I'll try to keep this much more simple. I was going kind of, manic mode. So let me calm it down. Even though you already signed with a publisher, most likely they would loosen up some of their publishing rights if it meant that you would be able to do some marketing and branding for them. So if you could explain hey, I'd really like the digital rights to my book for the metaverse. I'd like the digital rights to my book for the decentralized, autonomous, virtual reality spaces. And then you can start playing with how you'd monetize the content that way. I'd have to know the details. So you sent me a DM and we'll go over specific details. Let me just talk about a book, whether you have a publisher or not. With a book, there is one piece of value, and then there's lots of little pieces of value. When you have a non-fungible token that's attached to a whole or parts, there are many ways to create revenue from it. One simple way is that you would sell the non-fungible token and then you'd get paid once. If that was sold again with the rights to all or part of that content, you get paid again and again. So that's one way, just the sale of it. Another way is that you would lease it to a publisher. Instead of a traditional contract, it would be an NFT contract. And every time that publisher does something of value, every time they extract value, you'd have a separate, different contract than normal, where you'd get a little piece of the action every time. And that's how it'd be tracked. A huge thing is your ability to track engagement. So as an author, you can track the engagement of how many shares, how many likes, how many comments across Twitter, across everything. Now, all of a sudden, if you are successful, you're now in a position with sponsors, with advertisers, with huge podcasters. So for instance, if you had a friend that knew Joe Rogan and he says, hey, you got to have Dr. Michael on, he wrote the book with Pete Carroll. He's got this other new book coming out. He's it's all smoke and mirrors, but your audience is going to think he's amazing. And, and so Joe may or may not be interested. But if Joe could see that in the last week, in the last month, that your NFTs of all your content was tracked and engaged, and you could give him analytic proof and data that you are a better guest to have on his podcast than others based on science, well, that's a whole nother ballgame. Now it opens up the opportunity for new doors to be opened up to get more access. So what I've talked about so far is the ability to sell, the ability to lease, the ability to track for the purpose of getting other outside revenue. There's more to it, but those are a couple ways that you can kind of follow the money. Looks like Tiebreaker Psych has just jumped in, as well as Paul Weber has just jumped in. Thanks for joining us. We're just having a conversation about how NFTs can be created for podcasters, authors, Twitter Spaces hosts, Clubhouse moderators. And this is being recorded. This is being live streamed with my technology called attn.live. I believe it's okay for me to do that as long as I let all of you know that. Our technology, attn.live, it records, transcribes, broadcasts to voice devices and social media sites and creates NFTs for IP protection and monetization. So do you have more questions? Can you just ask me harder questions, more detailed questions that I can try and answer? And if Paul, if you or Tiebreaker Psych, if either one of you want to jump on as a speaker, I'm happy to do that. I'll invite you to speak now. And after Dr. Michael Gervais and I are done, then I can ask you if you have any specific questions. Just understand that this is being recorded. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Great explanation. And I think where it gets fuzzy for me is like, okay, so I do an episode on a podcast. And I guess what I'm stitching from what you just said on it, based on attn.live, is that if I record it using maybe your tech, that then becomes, there's an NFT embedded in it. And then if I ever wanted to do, or anyone else wanted to do anything with it, there would be a code attached with that, or a license attached to that. There'd be a payment required. And but I think that on our last conversation over on Clubhouse is that Aaron had asked, you can wave me off if that's not right or only partially right, for sure. But then Aaron had said, like, well, how do we change the behavior of people that are listening to say, oh, well, okay, I'm going to listen to XX podcast and that's going to cost me 12 cents. Or I listen to the other version of it that's got ads on it and that doesn't cost me anything other than time.
That's such a great question. Okay, so this is the problem with luminaries. Like I really like Russell Brand. I don't know him as a person. I mean, I like the content he's creating. I find him to be thought-provoking and stimulating. But he moved his whole podcast to luminaries. It's also the problem with Joe Rogan going on Spotify. So when a technology company says, we have a much better platform for you, what they're really saying is, you have a huge audience. We want your audience, and we want your audience to completely change the way that they consume your content. And I think that's Aaron's big concern. Like, whoa, Ian, how am I going to get my audience to change the way they consume my content? My answer is you're not. This is why we broadcast to YouTube, because people use YouTube. People use YouTube on YouTube. They use YouTube on their TV, on their phone, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. That's why you did YouTube first. Because if we could do YouTube right, then we're able to basically reach every single place where people are already at. So when we broadcast content to YouTube, or in the near future, Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of social media sites, or we broadcast to new mediums like attention, Amazon's Lexi and Google Assistant, where people are not yet there, but they're going there. We aren't asking the audience to change how they do anything. The audience, they don't have to opt into being tracked with big data, because all that our token would do is just track the amount of likes and comments and engagements, shares, et cetera, that happen. So you're talking about an opportunity, at least the way that we built it, it's an opportunity where we are not asking the consumer to change how they do anything. We are not even asking the content creator to change much, right? Because if you are a public speaker, all you're going to do is you're just going to add an element where your cell phone or your Alexa Echo Dot or your Google HomePod Mini, you're just going to bring this device with you or have your cell phone with you, and you're just going to press stream. That's the only change that you're making. Like you're not teaching differently. You're not writing differently. You're not doing different book deals. You're just using one piece of software that broadcasts to all the places where your audience is already at and where your target prospective audience is at. And they're not changing anything. They don't have to go on Luminaries or Spotify or this paywall or that paywall or the special Medium article, but you actually got to pay a monthly fee to access it. So we don't believe that adding more barriers between a content creator and a content consumer is going to lead to financial benefit, nor will it lead to great community building and the reciprocation between the two parties. That's why we believe in a decentralized autonomous organization where we put the power into the hands of the creators and the consumers. And then we create opportunity for NFT collectors to funnel money into the environment, and for NFT champions, the publishers, to funnel money and attention and influence into the environment. And we're trying to stay out of the way as much as possible by creating frictionless technology that lets content creators reach content consumers where they're already at in the way that they're already comfortable with. Does that make sense?
For sure. And I feel super dense because when I follow the dollar, I get confused. Like, I get it if we're up on YouTube. Let's say, just use your example.
Yep.
Is that if I'm reading an ad spot, and I'm using your technology, but I'm reading an ad spot because maybe we're having a conversation, or I just say, hey, this is also brought to you by fill in the blanks. And it's almost like a throwaway at the beginning or the end. And then we post this conversation, like what you're going to do maybe somewhere else. How does the money flow there? And that just helps me to be concrete when I think about money flow, because I love what you're talking about in theory, and I'm almost there, I promise. So
that's a good question. I mean, I think I understand why you're confused, because now I'm confused.
Yeah, there we go. We're both in it.
Uh-oh. Okay. This has been a big hurdle for me. The big hurdle is that almost every conversation with a huge enterprise or a significant prospective investor, if there's not enough time invested into them walking out what this actually looks like and what this actually means, it often leads to them hitting a breaking point. And okay, I just got financially concerned because now, Ian, I buy into the vision. I also recognize this is like, I'll be a prototype alpha beta user, whatever you want to call me. And this is bleeding edge. And maybe this is ready in 9 months or 2 years. And like, I'm not ready to invest my time, my money as an enterprise client. I'm not ready to invest my intellect and my capital as an investor. And so this is why we've had a lot more people want to be on our team and be our employee, right? When I put jobs up, it was like an onslaught of interest. This is why I have a lot more people who want to be beta users, because the thought of them using the product as kind of a DIY model, they'll figure it out. Now, there is a lot of hurdles around finances have not really been made this way. So I often go back to music and I say, there's a reason why ASCAP and BMI are the trusted sources for musicians to track their engagement and compensate them. There's a reason why Universal and Warner, iTunes and Spotify are able to have all the musicians trust them to distribute their content to where people are at. Now, as far as YouTube goes, how do you track the dollars? So I take this video, I take this audio, I post it on YouTube live. I post it on YouTube as a archive. Where's the dollars? Well, ultimately right now, it would be a matter of I get more attention, more influence, so I can go after advertiser sponsors for the first time, or I can increase my advertiser sponsor contracts because I have more proof that I have more going on there. So that's one. Another one is the whole thing of publishing, right? So for publishing, can I do something along the lines of taking this content, whether it's one piece of content or all of my live podcasts, and can I do something in alignment with saying, okay, does this have value, this one or all of these, to a publisher? Now, I did not have an opportunity to sell my content to publishers because it was just like scattered on Dropbox and Google Drive and this contract with this person and that contract with that person, and it's just different now. So as far as like absolute crystal clarity for YouTube alone, okay, well, if you have more videos that get more attention, then you can just have their advertising program and put ads against the video. So like, I guess that would answer your question, but that's not really what you and I are aiming for. I don't think that's the answer you're looking for, or the answer I want to give. But I believe that the ultimate response that I have to what you're saying is there is many options available to content creators, and the content creators will have to decide the way that they want to monetize the content. And we would do the best we can to help automate that process.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Thank you. And I don't want to take up the rest of this with folks. I know Ted's got a question there, and let Ted rip, and I'll follow you. I'll follow up with you later.
That sounds great. Yeah. Ted used to be a professional basketball player, and now he's our chief of ethics, but he's a tall 6'9" monster of a man, and he can still beat me in basketball.
I'm sitting in the backyard and my son's shooting baskets. So if you hear the ball dribbling, I wanted to weigh in and give my input on this. You know, basically right now, you know, people are making money at podcasts, and I'm thinking there's three categories. There's the super elite, you know, Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, who are just making a boatload of money. Then there's another category that's kind of not seen, and that's like corporations, Fortune 500 companies. They're producing a whole bunch of podcast content. They don't really care to directly monetize it, but they're adding value, and it adds a huge amount of value, and it's a cheap way to add value for them. And, you know, their businesses are thriving, so they're making a lot of money out of their podcasts. Then there's another group I'm thinking of that aren't necessarily seen as podcasts, and they've been making money and making a living off of you know, content creation, and now they're all podcasters, nearly all of them. And these are pastors, and they have an old nonprofit model where, you know, they preach every week, and then they're almost all using tools they turn their message into a podcast. And people like what they say. They build a community. Those people think that their instruction adds value to them, and so they compensate them that way for it. What I think the Attention Live and the NFTs and the technology has the potential to do is kind of expand those opportunities to more people. You know, like you talked about ads on YouTube. When I see an ad on YouTube or on Facebook, I pretty much either ignore it or feel violated. You know, I think of the social dilemma. But like, I love Tim Ferriss's podcast. When he promotes a product, I actually feel like I'm partnering with him, and like I listen to that. It's almost like a value add because I trust him. And I like what he's recommending, and like, oh, okay, I actually feel that he's done a little bit of vetting for me and is putting more product, you know, more opportunities out there that I might be interested in. This can bring those advertising opportunities to many, many more. You don't have to be elite at the level of Tim Ferriss to have an opportunity to make money off of advertising on podcasting, and to be a trusted voice that people respect what you're talking about, and presenting ads in a way that are, you know, valuable to them. I also think about for athletes, like how you could empower them to take more control of their narrative. Imagine if they're doing an interview after a game and their fans can make micro payments and say, I own the NFT of that interview. And when they say something like cool, like I'm thinking, I would love to be able to tell my friends, Allen Iverson, yeah, not only did I hear him in that interview when he said, you're talking about practice. I own that. Like I own the NFT for that, and there's only 500. You had to be watching live or whatever. And this is what he really meant by that. That would be a really powerful way to.
Yeah, Ted, that's awesome. So if you close a gap for me, then that would mean that Alan's got his phone out and all the interviews that he's doing for NBC or whomever, that he's also doing it on his phone. And because his phone is connected to like an attn.live, which is built the NFT for it.
He has two options. So Ted, let me answer, then we'll wrap up the meeting. Martin, Dante, Brian, thanks for joining us. We're just wrapping up our conversation around how NFTs can be created for podcasters, Twitter Spaces, hosts, Clubhouse moderators, athletes, etc. So to answer your question, Allen Iverson has a couple options. One, he has his phone out and he's live broadcasting. Two, he takes the interview that he did that morning, last week, last year, last decade, and he then posts the interview that's his own, either because NBC's rights expired or they gave the rights back over to him, or he bought the rights from them. He then puts that archived content through our system to create an NFT, to protect his IP, and to monetize that IP. So there are options of both live and archived. Hopefully that gives you a little more clarity in terms of the flexibility that we've built into our system.
For sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I'm a look at your DM, and I want to jump in and like show you physically like our radio station that we build out with all the podcasts. We call it My Stream List. I want to be able to show you how like we literally built out the whole entire voice interface for Alexa, where you control everything happening with the Alexa skill. We built out the social media integration with YouTube. You can either connect your YouTube account, or let's say that you're going to interview Pete on Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse, and it's a special thing. And Pete's like, you can't have the Seattle Seahawks account, but I'll let you connect to the Seattle Seahawks account through the YouTube API for 1 hour. And now you and Pete both get to have this conversation on Clubhouse, have this conversation on Twitter Spaces, and at the same time, broadcast the audio directly to the Seattle Seahawks YouTube account. And we spin up a Seattle Seahawks Alexa skill, and you broadcast directly to that. Like these are the types of customizations that we are still manual, some of them, but we're trying to automate. So hopefully, as your imagination begins to marinate these different options, when you and I talk next, we can discuss the practical things of like what's next for you with your next book, and what are the possibilities for past books, and not just books, because you're more than just an author. Like what would it look like for you to invite Pete to come on a platform like a Spaces or a Clubhouse, where the two of you can have an open dialogue that's just listened to by an audience. Maybe the audience gets to engage, maybe not, but it gets to be broadcast and protected. And now all of a sudden it's a brand new piece of intellectual property that you and Pete can co-own, or you can own your words and he can own his.
That's great. Okay, looking forward to it. Send me your email and then
I will.
I'll follow up with you.
Okay,
awesome.
Great.
You guys are great.
Thank you so much, Ted. Thanks for joining. Martin, Dante, I'm just kind of getting my hands around this whole Twitter Spaces thing. I just want to have a quick conversation with some friends about how to create NFTs as podcasters. I'll be back again on Twitter Spaces probably every day this week doing these demos. So please join me next time. I do have this entire thing recorded. I got everybody's permission. That was a speaker. I have it recorded and broadcast through YouTube. And so you can click on my profile, go to my Twitter account, and you can see the YouTube video that started off on Clubhouse and has made its way over to Twitter Spaces. But everybody, I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back again soon. Okay, I'm still broadcasting live through our Attention Live software. It's been an hour and 50 minutes. I'm going to end that in just a moment. I did a bunch of invites. This is interesting. Like I invited Mark Andreessen and Pomp. I invited Gary Vaynerchuk and Ben Horowitz and a bunch of my friends, Nifty Gateway, OpenSea, a bunch of people in the voice industry. And for some reason, it like sent, like, this is such a bummer. Like, I'll give you an example. I've never once in my life messaged Mark Andreessen. That was only one of them. Let's see, Ben, that's only one. I saw one that were like 10 went out. So like some of these invites, like OpenSea got 3 messages. Like my friends at OpenSea are gonna be like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? So there's something broken with the Twitter Spaces, or I did something wrong. Okay, like this is a bummer. Like Gary, like I'm not looking to annoy Gary with 10 messages. I want to send him one message. I thought he'd be interested. NFTs, podcasters, like it's right up his alley. And anyways, there's a problem with the invite tool. So I need to figure out how to do this better and not potentially get myself to get banned. That would be a bummer. I'm done. I'm ending my broadcast that is being done currently on attn.live's YouTube account and Amazon Alexa's skill. I am going to end my broadcast that's being done on Ian Utility's YouTube account by video, where I'm sharing my screen. Let me stop sharing the screen and just my face. If you're watching live, thanks for your attention. Wow. I'm very grateful. If you watch the archive and you make it through an hour and 50 minutes, well, I hope it made you laugh a lot. I was trying to be lighthearted. I did a tremendous amount of work while the Clubhouse was going on, and I recorded my screen so that I could show people how I am involved in moderating rooms. I'm not just like paying attention all the time. I'm like half paying attention, and the other half is I'm like going to war and doing the ground war, you know. Being a moderator is the air war. That's dropping bombs, you know, and that's a surveying the land. But, you know, I got to be a Marine with the gun in my hand and do hand-to-hand combat if I'm really going to just have fun. I mean, I get bored if I'm just flying a plane and doing some surveillance, dropping some bombs. I want to go, you know, I want to go play on the ground. I want to do both. I'm done. I give up. I'm calling it a night. Ending it. Good night, everybody.